Welcome back, folks. The Ray program, Ray Lucia Show, 844-RAY Show. If you want to talk about your dough, and you may not have nearly as much in 20 years as you perhaps might have thought, if you've been running illustrations or playing with your HP 12C calculator and showing stock market returns of 10% annually. Because research affiliates, Chris Brightman says, even looking at just about every combination of asset classes, he can't get to a 5%, no less 10, 5% real rate of return being that return that exceeds inflation, of which we have none. The consumer prices went down in January's first time since 2009. How's that grab you? So don't expect Janet Yellen to get too excited about raising interest rates anytime soon. Joining me on the program with a solution to come and save the day, it is, he's a mighty mouse. Gene Pastula, certified, is in the studio. Okay, so Gino, thank you very much.
Mouse.
Yeah, you're the mighty mouth, we call you.
I see.
Not mouse. I think we're supposed to dub that in.
Okay.
Listen, this is right up your alley because obviously you focus on insured products, and I want to get to a couple of them here in a second. But if, in fact, no one should expect a 5% real rate of return, and if, in fact, you have economies all around the world where you lend them money in terms of buying their government bond, the safest bond you can probably buy, and they say, we're not going to pay you interest, you're going to pay us interest just to hold your money, you've got to start thinking in your own brain, wait a minute, there's got to be a better way. Gene Pastula, what say you?
Well, obviously it depends on your circumstances, but the insurance industry, I mean, this is what they do and have for 100+ years. So they have products and financial instruments that that put them between you and the financial environment, I guess. When you're talking about bond rates, for example, there's a whole variety of ways of generating rates of return that the insurance companies can utilize that the average investor would not, because of lack of knowledge or sophistication or fear of loss or what have you. But the institution of insurance is you know, it's got a lifespan of 100 years or more going forward. I mean, it's an unlimited lifespan. We, on the other hand, unfortunately, do not have that kind of lifespan. So the difference in how they can invest money and what's available to us is significant. That's very esoteric way of saying that when you utilize some insurance products, you can generate rates of return of 2, 3, 4%, and sometimes even a little bit more in this environment, without the downside of having to lose your money. I mean, you invest. I have a stock portfolio that's all preferred stocks, with the idea, or not preferred stocks, but dividend-paying stocks. Yeah, right. Dividend-paying stocks. That, you know, so I look at it and say, okay, you know, I can't worry about the ups and downs like this going in that particular portfolio, but I do know that on average I'm going to get a 2 or 3 or 3% dividend rate of return on this stuff. And then sooner or later it's going to come back. I'm okay with that. But the money that I want to make sure that I don't see go down, that is just going to go up, or is just going to give me a return that is an income that I know is predictable for the future, last as long as I do, grow by contract or whatever, that's what the insurance company does. And when you start comparing it side by side in an environment like an uncertain environment like we have, it starts to make a lot of sense, irrespective of what the pundits say, who I find know very little about these things, but they like to talk about, you know, how expensive they are and all the rest, which is just not true.
It is not true. Let me just go back to a point that Gene made here, just from a pure...
Did I make one?
Yeah, he did. You haven't quite saved the day yet, but he made a pretty good point. Here's the deal. insurance companies go long with their money. They can make longer term investments. And we all know that if you make longer term investments, or you make, in some cases, illiquid investments, be it real estate or other illiquid investments, you have the opportunity to make a higher rate of return. So they are not confronted with interest rate risk the way a bondholder is confronted with interest rate risk. If you buy a 30-year bond today, yeah, you can get 3%. Even making a loan to the federal government. But God forbid interest rates go up a couple hundred basis points over the next couple of years, you're going to get shellacked. You're going to lose 25, 35% of your principal were you to need to sell out between now and 30 years from now. Well, I don't know too many people that are going to make a 30-year decision today based on where interest rates are today. Well, I don't know that many, but there sure are a lot of them out there buying 30-year and 25-year tax-free munis that are paying virtually nothing too, or very, very low interest rates. But the point is there's the insurance company can go long, whereas the individual's mentality, rightfully or wrongfully, is typically short-term. So that's really how they do it. And of course, they can also invest in real estate and mortgages and other things.
Sure, yeah.
that have a longer time horizon and get seek higher rates of return.
Correct. And so when you look at these different solutions, and I'm talking about things like income generating assets for your portfolio. Obviously, it's a little different if you're talking about somebody who's 30 years old or 35, who's got a long time frame to invest and literally is looking at this market saying, you know, I can pick up some really good stuff at really great prices, and the volatility, I don't care. Every time it goes down, I'm going to buy more for the future. Well, that's great. But when you get up into the ages of late 50s and early 60s and you're anticipating retirement and the like, what you're looking for then more and more and more is predictability and dependability, and you don't want to see it go down, because we all know that when the value of these financial assets go down 10%, it takes a, I don't know, 12 or 15% return to get back up to even. So it's much more critical at that point in time. So the insurance companies provide annuities that provide private pension income, the same thing that the corporations, the big businesses used to provide for years and years for lifetime. They provide those in a way of accumulating money for the future, and of course protecting assets from illness and death.
All right, Gene Pastula, he has almost saved the day, but when we come back from the break, I do want to talk about this. Elderly spend nearly 20% of their income on health care. According to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, 20% is a pretty big number, no question about it. So we come back, Gene Pastula is going to talk about the solution there. Maybe he can save the day twice, who knows? 844-RAY-SHOW if you want to talk with Gene or myself. 844-729-7469. The Ray Lucia Show continuing right after we hear the Mighty Mouse song on the way out. Went back into the archives to get a song that both Gene and I do remember. Do the stomp and even stroll it at the hop. Welcome back. It's the Ray program, raylucia.com. If you want to send me an email, I'll get to a few emails in a couple of minutes here. raylucia.com. If you have a hard time spelling Lucia, because there ain't no H in it. I know, because we got the H out of there. Aha, very good. That one's getting really old. 844-RAY-SHOW if you want to chat with Gene Pastula. Now, I teased this, Gino. Elderly spending nearly 20% of their income on health care, according to the Employee Benefit Research Institute. According to the report, in 2011, the average out-of-pocket household cost of health care for seniors 85 and older was $6,600+, constituting 19% of total household expenses. 8 percentage points higher than for those ages 65 to 74. You know, we are living a lot longer. And so when you think of that old fogey that's, 85 years old, there's going to be a lot of us old fogies that are 85 with the baby boom population retiring somewhere between 8 and 10,000 people every day. And that'll continue for the next decade or two. So we do have to be concerned about this. And those expenses, by the way, were only defined as doctor's visits, dentist visits, and usage of prescription drugs. Nowhere did it talk about long-term health care, which in this report suggests that those over the age of 85 and older, 62.3% had stayed in a nursing home overnight before death, and 51.6% were living in a nursing home before death. Back to Gene Pastula. Gene, we spend a lot of money insuring our cars, insuring our homes, and insuring against fires and all that other stuff. And there's a remote possibility that an earthquake could hit your house and cause it to crumble. But there's a pretty high, those statistics are pretty staggering when you think about it. 62.3% of 85-year-olds stayed in a nursing home before they died.
I told an audience last week, we had one of the financial planners that I do business with or assist with their various retirement counseling issues. And he gathered a group of people together to learn about linked benefit and long-term care issues and what have you. I quoted that statistic and I said, it's really interesting. If I were selling you lottery tickets that had this kind of success rate of 60%,
you'd buy them all.
I said I wouldn't have to buy you lunch to get you here.
That's right.
It's interesting. It's of all the things that we face as a risk, that is obviously as we age, that's the number one. When I started in the business, we used to look at the big financial risk was paying estate taxes and estate transfer costs, and there was a relatively small percentage of the people who had to worry about that. Today, those people and everybody else, whether you have a lot of money or not, has to worry about, or at least be concerned about, eventually having to pay for care or being in a welfare type situation through Medicaid and having the government give you what they're willing to give you. It's not a good thing. It needs to be, you need to pay attention to that.
You do need to pay attention to it, and there are ways to satisfy the need. You just have to, pony up with premium dollars every single month. Or, as you have presented many times in this program, just simply do an asset transfer, a balance sheet transfer. There are ways to do this where you have, if you are fortunate enough and blessed enough to have some money in the bank, your money in the bank is earning you squat. It's earning nothing. And according to what the CPI numbers showed last month, it's going to probably stay that way for quite a long while. We're not going to see those double-digit interest rates anytime soon. You may not see half of a double-digit anytime soon. So that being said, if you've got money sitting in a savings account or some kind of a bank account or a money market fund, or it's cash in your brokerage account. I remember when I owned a brokerage agency, I would look once a month at the cash account. And I remember, I don't know what the number was, but it was in the $100 million range where people were sitting on cash, where they sold a stock and it's just sitting there. There's money sitting. They're afraid to invest. They don't want to invest it. Or they believe they need that cash for an emergency. Well, Gene Pastula invented the emergency fund insurance contract 25 years ago. And that has gained popularity. I think just about every bank in America sells this type of a vehicle, and there's more than one product that exists out there, but he was one of the individuals with a team of individuals with actuaries and so forth that developed the linked benefits plan, which is simply a balance sheet asset transfer. You don't have to send money away and kiss it goodbye for life.
Yeah, and you have three types of individuals actually that are addressing this. One that have no money whatsoever, and and they're going to obviously have to depend on either family or state programs. You have the very wealthy that have that tremendous amount of money that know that they could write checks for $6,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 a month, depending on where they live, to be cared for in a long-term situation. And then the people in between that that basically have to make choices between whether they allocate a portion of their investment portfolio or they pay premiums on a conventional long-term care policy. It's interesting. We're having more and more people, and I would suggest that if you have any interest in exploring this in any way, that you go online to safemoneymonitor.com, which is the website we set up to provide some basic information on this and access to our services, to where we look at, you know, the assets that you've got, and discuss what you're trying to accomplish, and show you how to minimize the risk, the financial risk for paying ultimately for long-term care by simply reallocating your savings and emergency fund, and also show you how to increase your spendable income that you're relying on to support your lifestyle. And those two kind of things kind of go together. And both of them do not require spending money that you can't get back. It's simply
that's
a
what's
choice.
awesome about
Yeah.
it. You literally can leave your money in the quote savings account. If you need to get access to your money, you can.
Mm-hmm.
You have a principal guarantee. You can't lose the money as long as you hang on for a couple of years. And you want to learn about this because it's, I think, the most benign way to take care of one of the most important problems from a financial planning perspective. And the problem is getting more and more severe as people are living longer. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to live healthier. Longer life means you didn't die, but you may need some care later on in life. And as you learn all the time in this program from Lynn Rowe and others, that the being the caregiver ain't what it's cracked up to be. It's a really difficult job. It's a costly job. It's costly in terms of the dollars that you have to spend and the stress that it causes within the family. Here's an interesting article that came out a few weeks ago, Gene. How nursing homes collect debts, seizing guardianship. It was in the New York Times, and what they're talking about here is in most states, I believe there's 44 states had specific statutory provisions on public guardianship, while another 7 states had no codes. In other words, if you don't pay or can't pay or aren't paying your nursing home bills, there are filial laws within many of the states, I think almost 40 some odd states, that say the state can come after the heir to collect on monies owed to a nursing home. And here they're talking about actually taking guardianship over mom or dad to gain access to their assets so that they can get paid off. You can't blame them because they run a business, they're trying to get paid too.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is that we look at the, in California where we are located, it's called Medi-Cal, and of course nationally it's the Medicaid, which we look at as a government program. Well, you don't think in terms of paying back government money, you know, but in the case of Medicaid and Medi-Cal, that is not just an automatic giveaway. The state wants their money back if they can possibly get it. Those filial laws are one way that many of them do get that money back. So it's sort of a loan.
Yeah,
that's
exactly
not a good
right.
way. It's not a good thing.
Folks, this is a critical need, and Gene's got an easy way to solve it, a solution for you. Go to safemoneymonitor.com, and he will help you out. It's a great website, safemoneymonitor.com.